Why do people not adopt to broadband? So the big reasons why: lack of awareness, so we need to have outreach programs; digital literacy, so we need to have digital literacy programs; lack of relevant content online, we need to make sure we have content; and then you have some issues around affordability of either the hardware or the connectivity. Because sustainability is partly what we're after. So I make the argument that ultimately, if we want this to be sustainable, what do we do right now in the home with technology that has a high adoption rate? Cable, television, high adoption rate. You can go into the lowest income public housing and have over 70% adoption. So why? Because they find the content to be relevant. Call it entertaining, whatever, it's relevant to them, it's what they want, and they understand how to use it. So if we apply that same principle to broadband, you will move the meter on adoption. Otherwise, we're going to look up and we will spend it, and we'll have a $250 million failure that will lead to a $7 billion failure. And we didn't start this in the year 2000 to have this whole adoption space to be a failure. So you can see we're determined to make sure there's some quality put forward, and we're going to go for it to try to make sure there's quality put forward. We should never build housing in this country unless everybody can have broadband, and it's the quickest way to get adoption and reach the poor. You talk about putting poor people first, it's the most affordable and efficient way to reach people. My opinion is that any company or anybody that is applying for supply-based resources, that unless they do something advantageous, adoption-oriented on the affordability side, they shouldn't get the money. Because otherwise, we're going to be using public money to subsidize another private entity to compete with another private entity only to keep the price where it is. Now, to me, that doesn't sound smart. We have a program now called Digital Connectors. And so what we do is we have young people between the ages of 14 and 21, and they're basically digital teachers and ambassadors to go out to communities. We've hired almost 3,000 young people that have supplied more than 60,000 hours of service. And what's great is that their self-esteem goes up. They go through a learning curriculum, and the best part of all that they like is they earn a computer. We did a focus group, and I was in the room, and it was mostly a Latino group. It was in Boyle Heights in Los Angeles. And there was a group full of, some of them were recent immigrants and second generations Latino, and they were in this computer class, and I asked the question, how many have a computer at home now? There were like only 2 hands up. How many would like to have a computer at home? All the hands went up. And then when we, through the interpreter, to try to figure out why they didn't have it, and when you looked at the results of the focus group, 60% of the reason was what was called fear of the transaction. Not even just the price. Price came in second. Fear of the transaction was, I don't want to walk into that store and see people who don't look like me and not understand what a Pentium is, and have to ask somebody a question because I feel like I'm getting ripped off. That same person who understands how to use a DVD or a TV has no problem walking into the store and purchasing that. So we said, my goodness, we just have to lower barriers. So at the time, we worked with Gateway, and they came out with Spanish-speaking folks. We had 2 computer models, and we set up a program right at the housing project where people get it, and it was packed, and most people opted for the more expensive computer. At the federal level is we need a 21st century version of the Red Cross. There's a big information gap when there's a disaster that happens, and we don't think about the information needs of people, and that causes some of the greatest stress level and some of the greatest financial loss. And so we're hoping to do more in that space, but we've already started. We can get a website up now in 36 hours to respond to a disaster and get a crew there very, very quickly, focusing on the information needs of people.